Leaders Recognizing Leaders. I am also an entrepreneur. I own two businesses, one in South Florida called Swim with Sam, where we teach people how to swim, people of all ages, from babies to seniors. And I also have a consulting business called Startup with Sam, where I teach aspiring and new business owners how to launch their brand, build a company, and also be amazing speakers. And I'm really excited for today's talk.
Great. So our special guest for this evening is Miss Megan Bilt. Ms. Bilt has held the title of Miss US World in 2016 through 17 and Miss World in 2017 through 2018. She is an actress, a keynote speaker, a model, and beauty queen. So before we start, I want to briefly mention that the chat will be open. So if you'd like to add any questions, please feel free. And if the time permits, we would love to get through it. So now without further ado, let's jump right in with Ms. Bilt. So can you please describe for us what your typical day looks like?
Yes. Okay. So I am also the teen leadership director for an international cosmetic company where we work with thousands of teens and over 40,000 adults. And so it's funny because a typical day is just not typical at all. And so when you're working with so many different people, the conversations are different. You're constantly creating programs to fill the need. I would say that from the moment I wake up in the morning until I kind of put my phone down for the evening, the number one thing that I consistently do is connect with people on Facebook, Instagram, via email, answering questions and helping them build a brand and build their business online. That's something that I train on. And then the other thing that I would say I do every single day is develop programs. So we focus on leadership development, and we also focus on social media knowledge bombs as well as business development in my place of work. And so there's no typical day, but I would say those are two things that I do every single day.
Totally understood. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So in regards to I know you have different roles that you fill, but what type of education would you say is required for someone in your position?
Yeah, so great question. My background is for many, many years, over a decade, I've worked in youth mentorship and leadership development for organizations such as Young Life and the YMCA of the USA. And so in many of those roles, a master's degree is required. Now, I will say this as well. Education is very important because you're growing, right? And you're choosing the direction of your growth. Sometimes we grow because life just happens to us. You know, we have experiential growth as well. Well, you need both. I really feel in order to grow and be successful, you need that intentional growth, growing in this direction, knowing what you want, knowing who you want to become, and then also when life happens to you, what is your attitude there? Where do you grow from there? So it's funny, when I started my journey with teen leadership, I actually started volunteering at an after-school program with the YMCA right out of high school. So I started there, and a lot of you guys are going to have internships that maybe don't pay very much or maybe none at all, or you might have something you're passionate about. Get in there and start volunteering as well, because the connections, the networking, and the experience that you're going to put on your resume is very powerful as well. And I will say, this is my first year working for a for-profit company, but it was everything that led up that I've done in the past that led up to this position. And a big part of that was building relationships with people. And so I wanted to say, yes, education is very important, and having hands-on experience.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. And that's one of the main things that LRL is about, is really, pushing everyone to be volunteers and like a lot of the benefits that come from it as well. So that's a really good answer. So what type of skill sets would you say that you use the most in your profession?
Oh man. Okay. I will say this. Growing up, my mom always told me, kill them with kindness. And when you are on any journey in life, You're going to meet some very sweet people and you're going to meet some sour, salty people. And in both of those situations, you need to be able to have a positive mindset, a positive attitude, see the good in people. You know, on a regular basis, there's lots of different conversations that I have working with thousands of different people across the US and Canada. And one of the things that I make it a habit to do is see them in their, I like to call it their true identity, and really pick out who I think, you know, what resonates for me in a positive way, and see them for all the positive things that they are and really speak to that. And what's really fun, I actually love learning people's names and going online, right? Yay, Google University, and finding out what their names mean, because there's power in that. And so I love to just speak positively to people. And I say that kindness goes a long way. And so, yeah, that'll get you just about anywhere. Being kind is a great skill set.
I agree. Perfect. So Samantha, you can go ahead.
Oh, you're muted.
Here we go. I got it. Alrighty. So my question for you is, what do you believe are the best and most challenging parts of your profession?
Okay, so the best part is working with teens. I love working with teens. I've been doing it for over a decade now, but I think that, you know, we're all put on this earth for a purpose. And I know that influencing and motivating and encouraging and inspiring and just loving on and listening to teens is what I was created to do. And so to be able to do that at an international level is hands down, like those one-on-one conversations where Heather made the cheer team and Susie got an A on her test. Like, yes, that is probably the best part. And I would say the most challenging part. Wow. So the company that I work for, we are in we just turned a year old. So there's growing pains from all areas of the company. And so I would say just the fact that we're growing and we're new, there's challenges in that. But again, it goes back to having a really positive attitude and a positive outlook. I will say this, a good attitude will take you very far. And when you're leading people, because we're all influencers, and we all influence someone, right? And I've noticed this, if a leader is positive, their team is positive and the people that follow them are positive. If a leader can find something that's negative, then they'll start attracting negative people and their team will follow in suit. So I always say, hold your posture. So anyway, that's probably challenging. We're growing a lot. Stay positive.
Gotcha. So my next one is, what can students start doing now to be prepared for your field?
So working for an international cosmetic company, there's so many different areas and different types of people with different skill sets that we need. For me specifically, creating a teen leadership program, I would say the thing that has added the most value to my role is the fact that when it comes to tasks, seeing it through. When I first started my job when I just started directing the teen leadership department for the YMCA of Greater Seattle, I live in Washington, by the way, Seattle, Washington. The first 3 days of my job, I just pretty much stared at my computer. I had no idea fully what I was doing, but I had asked the CEO what type of person he was looking for, and he said someone who loves working with teens. So that I knew I could do it. But here's the thing, no matter what task you see before you, and I will say this, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm telling you this because I know a lot of people who do give up. A lot of people who give up and they jump to the next shiny thing because the thing they started on ended up being more challenging than they thought. So if you desire a future in directing teen programs, that is incredible. Start volunteering now, start working with teens now, and say yes to opportunities that are intimidating, because when you say yes to an opportunity, it opens another door. And I want you to tell yourself, I can do it, because you can. And I will say this too, there are certain things like administrative skills and, all the organizing and the tasks and budgeting that do not fill me up. They don't like make me glow. That's a little, what should I say? There are things that like fill you up, and there are things that you do because, you know, you can. So make sure that you complete your tasks, that you don't give up, but that you've chosen a path that really energizes you, because I believe that people grow in the fruit of what energizes you. So if you're in your calling and in your flow and in your giftings, other people are going to benefit from that. So I know I just said a lot of things, but essentially don't give up, and know that even if you take it little tiny steps at a time, or you start a task and you just kind of have to stare at it for a couple of days because you don't know where to begin, eventually you'll get a download and you'll start walking it out. So, you know, there's so many different things that have led to so many different yeses and doors that have led to where I'm at right now. And some of them were not always pretty, but we learn, right? We don't always get to be in like the best thing we ever thought of. It might take a while. It might take weeks, months, or years. And know that there's their starting point, there's your destination, and then there's the journey in between, the process. Fall madly in love with the process and don't give up.
I love what you said about doing something and saying yes to opportunities that even make you feel uncomfortable. It kind of reminded me of Will Smith. He always has this quote: "If you're afraid of doing something, just do it scared." I think that says a lot about success and how we get someplace, even if it makes us uncomfortable. Obstacles build posture. You're absolutely correct. I agree 100%.
Yes,
Um,
that.
my
Thank you.
next question for you is: I know that you said that being a teen mentor is something you knew you always wanted to do, like it's just meant for you. But was there ever a moment when you knew, like, hey, this is what I wanted, or the idea come to you? When did you finally say, like, this is what I want for my life?
Yeah. So growing up, my parents worked after school, and so I actually went to an after school program, which is why when I first started volunteering after high school, it was like, I'm gonna go volunteer at an after school program because I loved it. I loved the mentorship that I got there. I love the friendships that I built. Yes, they helped me with my homework. Hallelujah. And so I knew I wanted to give back to something that had filled me up. But I will say, when you're working, eventually I got hired, right, for the YMCA. And when you're working for a nonprofit organization, you wear many hats. So I was the teen leadership director. I was the youth sports director. I was the homeschool PE director. And there actually came a time in my life where the woman who raised me and my mom, because my mom was pretty young when I was born, ended up leaving this earth. And I was devastated. And my boss, what she did was, I had taken a few days off work, and she said, "Hey, I really need you to come in." And I was like, "Okay, I will do that." Because you told me to, because I'm a rule follower. My boss asked me to do something. I'm like, all right, I'll show up. And in that moment, spending time with all of those teens, it's like there was so much joy and so much peace and so much comfort that I knew that I wanted to do it forever. And it was and then after I got home, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of in this moment again. But that was when I was like, wow, it's like the whole world just stopped, and I got to be in my gifting, in my flow. And I'm like, man, I'm also very energetic, which I'm like, that helps work when you're working with youth and teens too. But that was my moment. Yeah, I think I was 19 years old. I'm 30 now, if that helps.
That was great. Thank you for sharing. So, as a pageant coach, what are 3 steps or even more that
Yeah.
you would give to a teen girl who is trying to develop self-confidence? This is a question like directly from one of our volunteers in the room.
I love that. Okay, so first I want to say this. I started competing in pageants because I thought it was definitely like a show up and win thing. We had a little pageant in my tiny one stoplight town, and some of my friends had competed in it before. So I was like, oh, sounds like fun. I lost big time. It actually took me 7 years of competing before I won Miss World. And I will say this, every single time I step on a stage, I still get so nervous. But one of the things, and I really want to, there's many, and I want to focus on this one because it is the most powerful, most important game changer for me. And that was know your story. I had a few coaches and mentors that I had hired along the way because mentorship is so important. Partner with someone who's gone before you and had some success. And it was my third coach. And instead of doing all these different exercises with me in a consultation, she sat me down and she was like, tell me about your life. And I was like, okay. And I walked her through like my childhood and I talked about my parents. And oh my goodness, we were there for a while. But what happened was she ended up pulling stories out of my life. So one of the biggest parts in how you really win a pageant, it's one in the interview process. And on an average, you get 90 seconds to 10 minutes, depending on which pageant organization you're competing in. And so you have 90 seconds to 10 minutes to have those judges feel something genuine for you. Like when they look at you and see you, they're like, oh, she's authentic. And so I'd been competing for a long time. And my brain was like, and one of the reasons why I felt so insecure when I was competing was because I was giving them answers that I knew nothing about. I was giving them those cookie cutter, like, what's your favorite color? Red, because it's the color of confidence, like weird phone voice answers. And when you are not in your true identity like that, like it is just whack. And so this coach ended up pulling genuine real life stories out of my life so that when I was in an interview and someone asked me a question, I actually had a response from them that was a part of me. And I remember when I finally won Miss Washington, I ended up working with one of the judges and he was like, man, you're so authentic. And I'm like, yeah, because my answers were genuinely authentic. They had to, and you know what's crazy is whether you're competing in interviewing for a pageant or a job, share genuine, authentic stories from your life. So that was a huge confidence builder, knowing that what I was sharing, I had already lived through. So what's to get nervous? You're not going to forget your story, and no one can take your story away from you either because it's yours. No one can say, that didn't happen, or they can't disagree with you. Like, that's your story. Another thing that I would say, big confidence booster, is be prepared. I had a mentor of mine once said, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And so you want to make sure that you're extremely organized when it comes to pageant weekend. I know growing up, you think like, oh, okay, walk across the stage in a pretty dress, walk across the stage in nice fitness wear. But it's like literally organizing every single segment to the T. That organization and that preparation for your stage or any other area in life is going to bring so much confidence. And one more thing that I always encourage I love mentoring teens in pageantry or grownups, but mainly teens, we know that, is I am statements. So in life, we go through experiences, or maybe someone said something to you that hurt you, or you went through an experience that hurt you. And sometimes when we go through that experience, we take on a false identity or a false statement, like I'm dumb, or I'm lazy, or I'm whatever. And so what I do is I love to sit my clients down and I'm like, okay, get out your journal. Or my favorite is sometimes I'll bring those little recipe cards and I'm like, I want you to write 3 to 5 things that you feel are true about yourself, a true identity. And even if they're not real, right? Like even if they seem untangible, unreal right now, read them every day. I am worthy. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am smart. I'm successful. I am a good leader. I'm a good student. And you're reading those out each and every day and especially when you get into a moment of fear or insecurity, you can go back to those and say, well, that's not who I am. This is who I am. And we have so many, there's so much to learn about ourselves, but so 3 ways. So a little recap: know your story, be prepared, and walk in a true and positive identity.
That was great. And honestly, even though the question like specifically said, for a teen girl, that answer literally applies to like any and everyone, regardless of gender, race, age, all of that. And I love the be your authentic self. Like, I feel like a lot of times you feel pressure to hide your true self, but I love that you're pushing that. That's great. So the next question is, have you managed limiting self-doubt? And if so, how did you do it? And I feel like your last answer partially touched on that.
That was funny. I was actually going over these questions, some of the questions with my husband today, and I was like, yeah, I would say knowing your true identity in every single situation. It's funny. One of our mentors has an international ministry, and a year ago, he wanted my husband and I to plant a church. I was like, we can't do that. We're too immature. Like, what if we're in that big leadership role and we hurt someone's feelings because we're human? And he's like, tell me your true identity. And I was like, bold, brave, like I can do it. So those statements and knowing your that identity is so powerful. So when you do get into that doubtful, scary, because life happens, right? We got good days and we got bad days. Going back to that and speaking that out is so powerful. Always going back to your true identity.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what kept you motivated for you to get to where you currently are today?
So aside from mentors holding you accountable, and here's the thing too, if you have a mentor in your life, they might know you're a mentor, but I want you to really take the time to go up to them. And sometimes this is really helpful because I've met a lot of coachable and not coachable people in my life. And it's funny how many like uncoachable like grown-ups you meet, right? It's not just teens at all. But I will say this, and I do this with my mentors too. I said, I want you to know that you are a mentor of mine, and I want to give you permission to hold me accountable and speak into my life. And some of your mentors might already know that, but take the time to give them that permission and be in that mindset to receive that, because being coachable is so powerful, and being able to be redirected is huge. Oh my gosh, sorry, ask the question. Okay. The second thing that has kept me motivated and really, especially in the really hard seasons of life, are having a community. I feel that if I were to look back on every storm, I would see that in the midst of that, I was surrounded by a culture and a community that really lifted me up and cared for me and comforted me and listened. And so you might have a community that you are already a part of. If not, find one. And that could be, through your school, that could be maybe a small group that you go to, but a really positive community that helps you grow and encourages you. That's always been huge for me. I love people.
So my next question for you is, what struggles did you encounter growing up that helped you to become the person that you are today?
Wow. That's really good. So I would say definitely, and I teach this to a lot of different people as well, and especially in like the pageant realm, because it's really important to have a platform that you speak about. And so when I had won Miss World, I worked with the National Alliance on Mental Illness because that was an organization that I sought out and did some research with after my aunt had passed away. And so I think what that was was probably to date one of the biggest struggles that me and my family had been through. And when something like that happens in life, sometimes you can break down and break away, or you can break through. And so what ended up happening was I ended up working with this organization and really being a champion for other people who had been through that experience as well. So I would say that was probably one of my biggest struggles, but it also sharing that story And being able to share that story, because it was really hard at first, was really opened up a lot of doors and built a lot of relationships. So I would say that. And then one thing, my dad was such a hard, just growing up, he was in the Navy for 20 years and we always moved around a lot because we would go from kind of job to job to job, wherever there was work, that's where we would go. And so even though that was kind of challenging, moving elementary schools and middle schools, it taught me, that's one thing that I learned like really early on growing up, is work ethic. I would see him leave every morning at 4 a.m. and get home in the evening. And even though it was kind of hard, I took what I could from that, the positive pieces. And I'm like, I'm going to take away some really strong work ethic from that. So I hope that answers the question.
It definitely does and gives a different perspective as well to help understand who you are. My
Yeah,
next
thank
question
you.
is maybe, I don't know if you ever thought about it before, because I know that this is really a passion for you, but what job would you choose if you didn't do what you're currently doing?
Well, when I was in third grade, I wanted to be a makeup artist. What's so funny is, so I left the YMCA the year that I won Miss World, and the goal was to go back as soon as I crowned my successor at the end of 2018. And during my year as Miss World, I built a lot of relationships in the film and commercial and fashion industry. And so I realized that my ultimate goal was to be able to reach teens in a very big way. And I'm like, okay, an amazing way to have influence, because I had actually worked, I was still, I don't know if you guys have heard of the organization Young Life, but I was working with my local Young Lifestyle. I've been doing that for 7 years. And I felt that it was time to step out of that, but into have that same influence, but in a bigger way. And so I'm like, okay, well, the entertainment industry could definitely help with that. So if I wasn't, and then this amazing opportunity fell in my lap, and I'm like, I get to mentor teens internationally. This is exactly what I wanted. So if I wasn't doing this, I would probably be more so intentionally pursuing film in the entertainment industry. So yeah, movies for teens.
Gotcha. My next question is, what are some of your hobbies? When you're not mentoring teens, what do you like to do?
I love to sing like all the time. Sometimes I sing the same verse over and over again and annoy everybody. I actually downloaded the Smule karaoke app yesterday. I downloaded it and deleted it like a billion times over the last few years, but I downloaded it again yesterday so I could sing wherever, anytime I want. So I love to sing. Um, my second hobby would be, I'm 5'3", but after World, I had the opportunity to model and do shoots and runway. Usually you have to be super tall for that. But I love when in my spare time, getting together with friends and makeup artists and hair artists and doing photo shoots. They're just a hoot and a half. And then I would say my third hobby, I work for a cosmetic company, but most of the time I'm kind of rocking out yoga pants and like a fun bun. But I do have the opportunity to teach people how to apply makeup and do different things with the cosmetics that we have. So I would say like my third hobby as of in this last year would be to play with makeup.
That sounds like fun. That sounds
That's super
fun.
fun. I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot.
Yeah. Like I've tried the tutorials and all that. It's just not working for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe you can give me some hints later.
Sure.
So I feel like you kind of mentioned this like early on when I asked about a typical day, and you said your typical day changes. But does your job change often? And if so, how do you update your knowledge and skill set?
Wow. Well, it's interesting because when you work for any company or like nonprofit or for profit, you actually operate in quarters of the year. So right now we actually have the next 2 quarters, the first 2 quarters of 2021 already mapped out. So we're prepared for and have kind of like an essentially not change day to day. We have a plan. Now I will say this: when you are and I guess cosmetics is almost a little bit entertainment industry. When you follow the trends, that changes, right? And also when you have over 40,000 people that you work with that distribute your products, you're constantly changing as well to meet their needs. So it's a little bit of both. You have to have a plan and you have to stick to your plan to see success and growth and be consistent in something for long enough. I like it's good to operate in I say like 90-day increments. At the same time, we are so new that we are really constantly finding solutions to needs. So that's a really great question because yes and no at the same time.
Totally understood. So I will I know we're like running short on time, but I will ask a question that I see from the chat. What are some tips on discovering your story?
Okay. That's so good. And okay, here's the funny thing. We all have so many different stories. Like I work for a cosmetic company and I have a product story, a genuine product story. I have a why I started in the first place story, which is like I wanted community. Um, but I would say 3 things. Like think about, and I know it's a little tough, but I want you to actually think about probably the most challenging thing you've ever had to walk through. And sometimes we have to think about it for a few days, right? Sometimes we really have to sit and think about what is probably the biggest storm that I've had to walk through. And once you have that like in your mind, 3 bullet points. Where were you when before this happened or as this happened? Where did you end up? The next thing is, what did you do next? And where are you going now? So when my aunt passed away, I mean, it was turmoil, absolute, the biggest tragedy that my family had been through. What I did next is I wanted to learn more about mental health. And then you know, beyond that, champion for people that have experienced what I had. So really go back into that moment and see what did you do? How did you come out of that and where are you going? So where were you? What did you do next? And where are you going now? I hope that helps. Bullet points. Otherwise, when you're telling your story, like I'd be here for hours.
Thank you for sharing that. A very organized way of keeping your thoughts together for your story. So I will say thank you once again, Megan Bilt, for taking the time out to speak with us all. We really enjoyed your answer, your energy. I love your energy. So I can see the teen mentorship role, like it fits perfectly with you, the pageantry, love it. So at this time, I will ask Edwina if she has any closing comments. And if not, I would like to thank you all for coming and to look forward for the future events that we have.
Thank you so much. No closing comments. I just have one song that really inspires me, and I want to be able to share that song with you. So thank you so much, ladies, for your great work and presentation tonight. And these are going to be my closeout words tonight. So just 1 second.
That was great. And I love lettuce scenes. So that was like perfect ending.